Every rider thinks they ride the way they ride because of preference, because they like going fast, or because they like going far, or because they like going alone. But psychologists who study behavior patterns in high-risk environments would look at your riding style and put you in a category before you finished your first corner. That is not an insult. It is just how behavior works. The way you ride is not random. It is a reflection of how your brain processes risk, reward, fear, connection, and control. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Here are 7 types of riders. Most riders are 1, some are a mix of 2, nobody is all 7. And by the end of this, you will know exactly which one you are, even if you do not want to admit it. Type 1, the ghost. You have ridden with this person and you do not remember it. Not because they were forgettable, because they were flawless. They showed up, rode the entire route without a single dramatic moment, and left without a story. No near misses, no hard braking, no moment where anyone behind them had to adjust. They were just there, and then they were gone. The ghost is the most skilled rider in any group and the least recognized. Their inputs are so smooth that the motorcycle seems to ride itself. Their positioning is so deliberate that hazards never reach them. Their pace is never the fastest, but it is always the most sustainable. Psychologically, the ghost has moved past the need for external validation. They do not ride to impress. They do not ride to compete. They ride because the act of doing it well is enough. Researchers who study mastery in high-performance fields call this intrinsic motivation. The reward comes from the process, not the audience. If you are a ghost, most people will never know how good you are, and you are perfectly fine with that. Type 2, the performer. This rider changes when people are watching. On a solo ride, they're smooth, measured, maybe even conservative. But the moment a group forms behind them, something shifts. The pace goes up, the corners get tighter, the throttle gets louder. They ride for the reaction. This is not necessarily dangerous. Some performers are genuinely skilled, but the motivation is external. The rush comes not from the ride itself, but from being seen riding, from the nod at the gas station, from the story afterward.
Psychologists call this extrinsic motivation. The reward depends on an audience. Take the audience away and the riding style changes. That gap between who you are when watched and who you are when alone is one of the most revealing things in human psychology, and the motorcycle shows it in high definition. If you are a performer, the question is not whether you can ride well, it is whether you can ride well when absolutely nobody is paying attention. That is the test. Type 3, the therapist. This is the rider who does not talk about why they ride, not because they do not know, because the reason is personal. They ride because something in their life is heavy, and the motorcycle is the only place where the weight lifts. For the therapist, riding is not recreation, it is regulation. Bad day at work, argument at home, something they cannot fix but cannot stop thinking about. The motorcycle does not solve the problem, but it gives their brain 60 minutes where the problem does not exist. The road demands too much attention for the worry to survive. This aligns with what neuroscientists call active coping. Instead of numbing the pain with substances or screens, the therapist replaces it with a high-focus activity that forces the brain to shift gears. Riding is one of the most effective of this because it engages every sense simultaneously. Vision, hearing, balance, spatial awareness, decision-making. There is no bandwidth left for the thing that was hurting. If you are a therapist, you've probably noticed that your best rides are not the ones with the best roads, they're the ones after the worst days. And that's not a coincidence. That's your brain using the only tool that actually works. Type 4, the lone wolf. This rider always rides alone, not because they have no one to ride with, because the moment someone else is on the road with them, the ride changes. It stops being theirs. It becomes a social event. And the lone wolf does not ride for social events. They ride for silence. There's a specific psychological profile behind this. Researchers who study introversion and sensory processing have found that some people have a lower threshold for social stimulation. They're not antisocial, they're not unfriendly, they simply recharge by being alone. And the motorcycle is one of the only places in modern life where being completely alone is not just accepted, but celebrated. The lone wolf picks the route, sets the pace, stops when they want, leaves when they want. There's no negotiation, no compromise, no matching someone else's comfort zone. The ride is pure because it belongs to one person.
If you are a lone wolf, you have probably tried group rides, and you probably felt something you could not name, but knew immediately that the ride was worse with company. Not because the people were bad, because the solitude was missing. And the solitude is the whole point. Type 5, the adrenaline chaser. This rider needs speed. Not wants it, needs it. A comfortable ride at the speed limit feels like standing still. Their brain is wired to seek stimulation, to push boundaries, to find the edge of what is possible and lean past it. Psychologists call this sensation seeking. It is a measurable personality trait. People who score high on sensation seeking are drawn to activities that provide intense, novel, and unpredictable experiences. Motorcycling is one of the highest scoring activities on that scale, and the adrenaline chaser is the person who maxes it out. This is the rider who gets bored on a straight road, who looks for the twistiest mountain pass on the map, who is always the first into a corner and the last to brake. Their skill level varies. Some are incredibly talented, some are surviving on luck, but the motivation is the same. The brain is chasing a chemical hit that normal life does not provide. If you are an adrenaline chaser, the important thing to know is this: the need for the rush is real. It is biological, but the rush does not care whether you survive it. The riders who last decades in this category are the ones who learn to feed the need without crossing the line. Track days, advanced training, controlled environments where the edge is accessible but the consequences are managed. That is how you stay alive and stay stimulated. Type 6, the protector. This rider is always aware that someone is waiting for them at home, a partner, a child, a parent, someone who checks the clock when the ride runs long, and that awareness changes everything. The protector does not ride recklessly because the cost of a mistake is not abstract. It is a face, it is a name, it is a phone call that someone they love would have to receive. So they wear the gear even when it's hot. They leave space even when the gap invites them to close it. They pass on the aggressive line even when they know they could make it. This is not fear. Psychologists distinguish between fear and responsibility. Fear is reactive and emotional. Responsibility is proactive and deliberate. The protector is not afraid of the road. They have made a conscious calculation that the ride is worth taking, but not worth risking everything for. If you are a protector, you have probably felt a quiet tension that other riders do not seem to carry. The knowledge that every ride is a promise that you will come back, and that promise shapes every throttle input, every lane position, every decision from the moment you sit down to the moment you park.
Type 7, the student. This rider is never done learning. They have been riding for years, maybe decades, and they still watch technique videos, still read about cornering theory, still take courses, still ask questions that riders with half their experience think they should already know the answer to. The student is driven by a specific psychological trait that researchers call growth mindset. They do not believe that riding ability is fixed, they believe it is buildable, and that belief changes everything. Because a rider who thinks they have already learned everything has stopped growing. A rider who thinks there is always more to learn never stops. The student is often confused with the beginner. They ask basic-sounding questions. They practice fundamentals that look too simple for their level. They go back to the basics when everyone else is chasing advanced techniques. But that is exactly why they are usually the most consistently improving rider in any group. If you are a student, you probably frustrate other riders sometimes. They think you're overthinking it. They think you should just ride. But you know something they do not, that the riders who just ride are the ones who stop getting better, and the ones who study the ride are the ones who get better forever. 7 types, 7 mirrors. The ghost who rides so well nobody notices, the performer who rides for the audience, the therapist who rides to heal, the lone wolf who rides for silence, the adrenaline chaser who rides for the rush,
the protector who rides with a promise, and the student who rides to learn. Most riders do not fit perfectly into one. You might be a lone wolf with therapist tendencies, a student who sometimes slips into performer mode, a protector who secretly misses being an adrenaline chaser. The mix is what makes you specific. But here's the real question. Which type are you when nobody's looking? Not the one you tell people about, the one that shows up on the road when it's just you and the motorcycle and nothing else matters. That is the one worth knowing. Drop it in the comments, and be honest, the motorcycle already knows.